G'day, this is Expand the Phantom podcast. We are a website, a podcast, and a way of life. You can find us at chroniclechamber.com. I am Jermayn, and this is Arabella, and this is a podcast where we will be remembering Ulf Granberg, who is a true giant in the Phantom world. First of all, how are you going, Dan?
Yeah, very good, mate, and delighted to have Arabella join us on the podcast. I think the youngest guest we've ever had.
Yes, yes. Yes, as we were recording this, she screamed the house down. So let's see how we go and whether we can do this with a baby. And yeah, look, this is the way we roll. Sometimes we record in cars, and other times we have babies on, and
As long as
we are
she's
a
the one who
family
spits the
first.
dummy and neither of us, we should be right.
Yes.
So the reason we're recording this is because there's been some pretty sad news in the fandom world. This week, at the time of recording, we learned that Ulf Granberg had passed, and he's had a long battle with cancer and unfortunately lost that this week. Now, for those who came in late, you may be wondering who is Ulf Granberg, which is a shame because he's a huge name in the fandom world, but this is a great opportunity, albeit posthumously, to find out a little bit about him. So let's go through the bio of Ulf as presented on Fandom Wiki. So he's born in 1945 and, as I said, passed in 2026. And for a huge chunk of the last 50 years, 60 years, was the editor responsible for the Swedish Phantom comic book Fantomen. He picked it up in 1972 and finished his editing career, if you like, in 2012. So that's over 40 years where he had a huge influence on the comic in Sweden. It's a duty which included heading the Team Fantomen production of Phantom stories, and he wrote almost 40 Phantom stories himself. Now, he wasn't the editor for that entire span of 40 years. He was the 12th editor of Fantomen when he took over in 1972, succeeding Per-Anders Jonsson. He continued then that role for about 14, 15 years until 1987 and was succeeded by Mats Jönsson. About another 14, 15 years after that, in 2003, he returned as the editor, succeeding Petter Sjölund at the time. However, through that entire time, he did remain in charge of the Team Fantomen production, serving as editor-in-chief and really overseeing the way that stories were written and the continuity of the Phantom and the Phantom stories across those 4 decades. So that's probably a big indication as to why he was so important. He was also the editor for the first 16 issues of Fantomen Krönika, and also for issue 58.
Yeah, and it gets a little bit confusing. Like, I think some people are going, what, Fantomen, Team Fantomen? So Fantomen's the magazine, which produces the comics and stuff like that. And then Team Fantomen is, which we'll talk about in a second, but they're the people that put the stories together, plan the stories, budget the stories, forecast the stories, hires people, and all that type of stuff. So in Fantomen magazine issue 9 in 2012, he retired. Now that's a total of over 1,000 issues that he was involved with in one way or the other. And when he retired, they had to get 3 people to fill his job. They got Mikkel Sol as the editor for the magazine, and then they got Claes Remithi and Hans Lindell as the editor for the Team Fantomen, which is the team of people that produce the stories. Now, what this bio doesn't include was all the behind-the-scenes stuff that many of us take for granted. So I'm going to rattle off a few names here. Now, I know I've missed some, so I apologize. But he was important, and this is just from a Fantomen point of view. He actually worked on other titles as well, but we don't deal with those other, they don't, we're the Phantom. We don't really care about those other magazines. So we're not worrying about those other artists and all those other magazines that he worked on and all that. So he was important in the hiring of several key creators from around the world in Cesar Spadera, Norman Walker, Jamie Valve, Carlos Cruz, Hans Lindell, Claes Remithi, Day Durrell, Donny Avenue, Filmang, Ferry, Joan Boyk, Tony DePaul, Paul Ryan, Graham Nolan, David Bishop, Georges Bess, Carrie Lapinan, Leonard Moberg, Sal Veluto, Bob McLeod, Dick Coriander, and any of those people that know what they're doing, they would go, well, okay, you've got people here from Europe, South America, America, Argentina, and so he scoured all of these places for talents.
Yeah.
That's a huge legacy.
It's a huge list of names you've just rattled off. And if you just take a moment to go, right, what if none of those people ever got involved in the Phantom? It would have finished. The Phantom would not be what we know of it, and just about it's impossible to imagine the Phantom comic without those names being involved. So from that aspect, hugely important. He's also, and I sort of alluded to this before, but I think his greatest contribution, having said what I've just said, I think his greatest contribution is the way that he managed to handle and maintain the lore of the Phantom. And one of the things, he would be largely responsible for. One of the things I most love about the Phantom character is that idea of continuity and being able to know when the second Phantom was and the fourth Phantom and who the 11th Phantom was. So he was massively important in creating, not creating the lore, because obviously Lee Falk did that, but basically keeping track of it and even filling in a lot of the gaps. And we know that Lee Falk left a lot of those. So a lot of people wouldn't know that Ulf Granberg actually created the first timeline of all 21 Phantoms. He actually gave the list of what he'd researched to Lee Falk, and Lee Falk ignored that because he was happy doing his own thing. And you can read all about that in the fantastic Lee Falk storyteller book. One thing that Lee Falk did like that he did is Ulf created the first Phantom map of Bengala and the countries around Bengala, which is a poster that a lot of people will be familiar with, released in the early 80s. Ozcan Erlap, I think, was the artist for that.
Right.
But that was based on the research and the work that Ulf Granberg had done. Lee Falk did like that one and actually asked for a copy of that. Some of the adventures created by Ulf Granberg, one of the ones I'm not such a fan of, he wrote the story on how the Phantom got the skull ring. People may or may not like that, but that's his contribution. The skull ring is so important to who the Phantom is. Ulf Granberg actually told us how he came by it. He told us the stories of the first Phantom and how he became known as the man who cannot die. One piece of origin lore that I love is the story of Devil, and Ulf Granberg oversaw that. He was the editor and the man in charge of Team Fantomen when they came up with the story of how the 21st Phantom came along, got Devil as his sidekick, and I think a lot of people really love that story.
Yeah, the other thing that some other things that he did is he oversaw the creation of Dogai Singh, who was perhaps the most dreaded Singh pirate, or probably the most dreaded bad guy that the Phantom dealt with.
I think for me, that's an example of how Granberg was able to pick up what Lee Falk put down, if you like. Lee Falk created the Singh Brotherhood, but he really only ever had this Singh pirate here and that Singh pirate there. Ulf was the one who said, well, let's get this generation. And you're right, Dogai Singh, and then ultimately Sandal Singh, who people have got their, she's a divisive character. But it's got us talking about the Phantom, whether you love her or hate her, no matter what you think of those stories, a really important part of the Phantom story.
Yeah. The other thing that I think that he actually really did good was creating the brain trust, or the Team Fantomen, which you've heard us talk about, which is a group of creators who would meet once a year, and then they'll map out the theme of the stories for the next year or for the next period of time. And I remember in one podcast with Leonard Moberg, he actually retold a weekend of how they came up with the storyline of Labunga. And that they were there for all weekend. They had writer's block, couldn't come up with an idea or something like that. And then the whole Labunga storyline came out of this weekend away, or this week away, whatever it is that you'll call. In the podcast that we have had with Ulf Granberg, he talks about how he would go and one of the stories he told us was he met up with Norman Walker and spent a week with Norman Walker and actually went over some stories and stuff like that as well. So Yeah, and then we made mention of the Lubunga storyline, which was controversial, but that impact of the Lager losing the presidency of Bengala is, in a sense, still being felt now.
Mm.
What, almost 30 years later?
Yeah, and you know, I've put my hand up on this podcast in the past and said that I didn't like that story at the time. Still not a massive fan of it because of the way it. I guess it caused a bit of a schism in the fandom universe between the Fantomen stories and the newspaper stories who did not have Lubanga, who did not have Luaga lose the presidency. They've managed to tie it all back together again now, which is great. You're right. It was controversial at the time, but again, got people talking about the fandom, got fans engaged in conversation about what they did and didn't like about it.
Mm, mm. So we'll talk about this, but for me, I wonder if this is his biggest legacy, and that is that in 1999, after Lee Falk's death, the newspaper strip almost was cancelled, but he pushed the continuous nature of it and suggested Paul Ryan and Tony DePaul and Claes Remifi to take over.
Who he'd had as part of his Team Fantomen.
Yeah. So, and then he also created stories which spread the Phantom to places like Australia, Brazil, Turkey, Russia, Germany, Estonia, Hungary, Poland, Slovenia, Slovakia, UK, and again, we've probably missed a couple.
Yeah, he's certainly the stories that he oversaw, big part of growing the universe and spreading it worldwide. There's no doubt about that. So I guess it's an interesting point because we've both said a couple of times, oh, this was his greatest point of his legacy, or that was his greatest, and add that all up, and he's a hugely important figure in the fandom world. In podcast 110, so it's a few years ago now. Almost 200 podcasts, over 200 podcasts ago.
I would love to do this again.
Yeah, we at the time we went over who we thought were the top 20 most influential Phantom people across the history of the character. And at that time, we had Ulf in our top 5. He was 5th, I think, actually, after Cy Barry, Lee Falk, Wilson McCoy, and Ray Moore. You just said you'd love to go through the process again. Let's just talk top 5. We're obviously still happy with Ulf in the top 5. Do you think he needs to be moved up?
Oh, no. So he'll still be 5th for me. He would be, without thinking about it, being put on the spot, Lee Falk, Cy Barry, Wilson McCoy, and then Ray Moore, and then Elf.
Yeah. It's hard to, massively important, of course, for all the reasons we've just said. Hard to get him above any of those 4, isn't it?
Yeah. Purely because, Lee Falk, Cy Barry speak for themselves. Wilson McCoy, I think he actually established a lot of law that I think he actually established more law than actually what Ray Moore did. Like he created the Jungle Patrol, Eden, the Good Mark Ring, Hero, the First Engagement, Diana being an Olympic medalist. All these type of core law elements are see the Phantom's eyes, you die. The jungle sayings. So that's why I've got Wilson McCoy over Ray Moore. But yeah, from apart from those big 4, I don't see anyone who had a bigger influence than Elf.
No, and those 4 are newspaper canon. They are the first 4 creators of the Phantom worldwide. They got into 40, 50 years before other creators were allowed to or became influential in writing their own stories. So take those 4 out, and then you got Ulf, and I think he's probably head and shoulders above position 6, whoever that might be.
Yeah, I would probably go Jim Shepherd in the conversation for 6 onwards.
Yeah, but he's not Ulf Granberg. No.
No.
All right, so we've both probably sort of tried to address it as we went through, but we go through that bio. What's the biggest thing for you that Ulf did? Biggest part of his legacy?
Probably the being integral in the newspaper strips staying alive, because not only has that continued that, and that was 99, so we're talking about quarter of a century later, and I feel like the newspaper strips are in such a good shape at the moment where if they had stopped, I don't think it would have been able to continue again. The
Yeah.
magazine, if Fantomen magazine died, the Phantom would probably still be around, not as strong. So that's for me the biggest, and then the next biggest will be the Team Fantomen, because the Team Fantomen Brains Trust or group or whatever you want to call it, that created the established lore, that filled in the gaps, that added to the lore, that rounded the rough corners that Lee Falk had created, that
Yeah.
made the character, that established the lore. And and you're probably the biggest critic of Fantomen stories out of the group. But what we do as established lore, i.e. with the Phantom Bible, what we talk about, what we whinge about when creators don't do it and stuff like that, that's all been not created, but it's all been shaped by Ulf Granberg.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. I probably agree with you wholeheartedly. In terms of those legacy items, it would have been the 25 years of work and blood, sweat, and tears that he put into the character that meant in 1999 when Lee Falk died, he just could not let the strip go. And you're right, that would have to be the single biggest part, most important thing that he did. He wouldn't have been able to do that without the 25 years that he had behind him, without the team that he had, that you've mentioned there, Team Fantomen, without that Brains Trust, without assembling that Brains Trust from all of that list of names you rattled off there before, and the work that he did in terms of establishing the lore, identifying a timeline, creating the maps, putting all the pieces together. It all came together for those conversations, which I'm sure must have gone back and forth in terms of, well, does the Phantom comic strip continue? Can we? Because in terms of the comic strip continuing, not long after he took over, Tony DePaul was in a horrible motorbike accident, and they needed stories that Team Fantomen had already produced. And they translated those into the newspaper strip. So, it really was that important crossover.
Yeah. So late last year, I created an article where I looked at the countries around Bengala.
Yep.
And I'd spent, so a peek behind the curtain, I spent on and off 5 years creating that article, reading stories. Oh, this story, it's got a map, or this story's got a clue, taking a screenshot, inserting it and stuff like that. As I got to the end of it, I showed it to someone from Team Fantomen now. And I said, hey, just want you to have a bit of a look at it. What do you think about it? And he goes, funny. I actually just went through the archives of Team Fantomen and I found this. And I've included it in the article. And it was something that Elf created back in the 80s. And it mirrored pretty much exactly what I did. Now, I'm lucky I've got digital copies of all the free stories and stuff like that. This was back before you could scan something on a computer.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was able to do that, and then the fact that he was, and re-listening to the podcast, which we had a chat with him in 97A and 97B, he retold the story about how he created a timeline. And I reckon it's very, very similar to the timeline we've got on the Phantom Bible.
Yeah. Look, and we were so lucky to be able to spend so much. Oh, he's so generous with his time that night when we recorded the podcast with him, to the point where it had to be split out over an A and a B, 97A and 97B. As you said, 3.5 hours of talking to the men. Thoroughly recommend anybody, and we have seen an uptick in people who have gone back and listened to that podcast, even in the week since the news has dropped. If you haven't listened to it yet, we'd thoroughly recommend you do go back and do a deep dive into the stories and the legend that is Ulf Granberg. We've both had a bit of a re-listen to it over the last week, and it is simply amazing. Very well worth your time. And we'll include links to it in the show notes. But that said, what we're going to finish the podcast with now is some highlights of that podcast. Not the full 3.5 hours. We don't want to display the whole thing, but hopefully enough for you to go, you know what? I love these little stories that Ulf and these little gems that Ulf was able to share with us, and go back and do a deeper dive into the full story.
Yeah, definitely. It was great listening. We were making notes and stuff like that, and literally we'll just, it's just like, oh, mate, it's going to be hard to limit some snippets just for that, but hopefully you enjoy it.
Yeah. So thanks so much for listening or watching us. The interview with Ulf is not videoed, so it is listening from here on in. If you've got memories of Ulf, or if you've got anything that you'd like to share, please contact us via chroniclechamber@gmail.com. And of course, the website is chroniclechamber.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback, your opinions. What made Ulf so great? Would you have him in your top 5? Do you think he was more important than a Wilson McCoy or a Ray Moore? Who's to say? Maybe you do. So anyway, let us know in the comments on the YouTube video or on any of our social media platforms. And as always, happy Fantoming and Ballet Ulf Granberg.
Yes. Happy Fantoming. Here's the next generation. No, thank you, Ulf. Thank you for your time, for your emails, for your letters, everything that the time that you have given us on the podcast, on everything as well. It's greatly appreciated. Love what you've done. Our thoughts and our prayers are with family, friends, loved ones that you've left behind. Thank you for sharing him with us, and we will never forget him. Thank you. Happy Fantoming.
Well said.
Yeah. Certainly Team Fantomen wrote a lot more of the stories for the previous generations of the Phantom than Lee Falk ever explored, didn't you?
Yes. So we should really be thankful to Lee Falk that he didn't explore too much of the
Gave you some space.
Phantom. Yeah, number 1 to number 19. So he left that open to us, and I'm very happy about that, because some of the very best stories are actually we have done have been historical adventures.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet?
It was really a good.
Did you ever meet Lee Falk and find out, what he thought of the stories that you guys were writing and producing?
Oh yes, I met Lee Falk many times, both in the States, on Cape Cod, his summer house, and also here in Sweden several times. He came here 5 or 6 times, I think. So
were those meetings
also.
Sorry, were those meetings like you guys bouncing ideas around about where the Phantom should go, or were they philosophical meetings about what sort of person or character the Phantom was? Can you give us a little bit of a fly on the wall of what it was like, a conversation between yourself and Lee?
Well, I would say that 95% of our conversations, were not about comics.
Right.
He really didn't. He was more interested in discussing music, opera, which is not my cup of tea really, and art, fine art, that is, but not comics. I think that comics to him, it was a way to earn a living. At one time, when I brought up this issue, what I thought this could have been I don't know, 78 or so, 77. What I thought were obvious stories that should be written and published, and I thought, of course, first of all, be written by Lee Falk. And I remember that we discussed, we talked about devil. So
Yes.
where did the Phantom get the devil and how? And I said, I have certain ideas, and also another idea about the skull ring. But both these, I think you should write. And he said, well, the story of devil, leave that to me, he said. Okay. So that was it, and we didn't do any story about devil for a number of years. But we did a story about the skull ring, how the Phantom got the skull ring, and that's a story about from the with the very first Phantom, and it is drawn by Valvé and written by me. So the ring was a cooperation, really a very tight cooperation between myself and artist Valvé. So he made sketches and pencils, and I made out the dialogue. We had discussed the plot first, of course, and then we made out. He made the sketches, and I made the dialogue on that. Otherwise, in the normal when publishing the production of the Scandinavian or the Swedish Phantom stories, the script was all finished when the artist got it, so he had just to follow the instructions in the script and leave ample space for the dialogue. Not so in this case. It was more like the way some American comic book artists and scriptwriters work. But anyway, this story was published in 1977, and it was very popular.
Yes.
And to this day, I must say, I'm very pleased with that story.
Yes.
About the devil, I thought I waited for devil because Lee Falk had said, "Leave that to me," and I waited and waited, checking every new daily script story, every Sunday page story. No devil. And finally, I got tired of it, so I think I thought we will do the devil story as well.
Yeah.
And the story of devil was written by Don Avenell, and Don Avenell was also an Englishman who joined Team Fantomen in 2 years later after Norman in 1977. In fact, Norman Worker suggested to me that when I said I needed yet another scriptwriter, then you should really hire Don Avenell because he is a very good writer, and we are good friends, and we have been working together for on the Saint. Because Don Avenell was also writing scripts for the Saint and for the Swedish for the Swedish publication. So that was an easy decision to take. That also hired Don. He was a different person altogether from Norman. A very easygoing guy, and he preferred to write modern stories, in fact. One of the few script writers that preferred modern stories. And so, and he wrote the story of Devil.
Yeah, amazing story.
That was a very, very good story. about the Phantom getting Devil as a little cub only, and it looked so helpless. And it was drawn by
George Bess.
George Bess.
Yes.
Yes. And that, of course, was exactly the right artist also for the story. So,
and did you ever find
that
out?
Was very good. So,
did you ever find out what Lee Falk thought about that story?
No, he never commented on that. But the Ring, he was very pleased with that story. So pleased, in fact, that he wanted a translation in English of the story, which I sent to him then sometime in the 80s, I think. So he said that he wanted to check it out, and he was always very pleased with the work that we were doing here in Sweden and Scandinavia with his child, as he said.
Oh, really?
So yes, he was very pleased with it, and he never had any criticism or any comments on the stories. He just thought that he relied on us, and he relied on me that we kept within the universe of the Phantom, which I thought was very, very important.
Yeah.
We couldn't really move outside the universe of the Phantom. That was a thing to do for Lee Falk. I mean, the marriage, for instance, and the twins when they were born and so on. Things like that we couldn't really do. We with one exception, and that was, when was that? In the 90s, I think.
You're talking about the change of president?
Yes, and also the that we could have done without so much thought, really, to have election in Bengali, and a new president was elected, who turns out to be a real bastard in every respect. But what I'm thinking of is that we, in one of these stories, we destroyed the well where the Phantom gets down. Yes. So that's the only time, really, I can say that we moved outside the universe of the Phantom, because the well it was established back in the 40s, I think, and had been one of the ingredients in the story all the time.
So that is one thing that I wanted to ask you about, Ulf. Why did you guys make the decision to do that? What was the thinking behind that one?
Well, we just felt, or I just felt that sometime we have to do something. But there is a follow-up story also here, that of course the messages in the safe, we need them also in the future. So in this story, where the well is destroyed by an attack from the Bengali Air Force, they fly Swedish fighters. So the Swedish, I think it is Viggen. So the Swedish fighters destroyed the well, and there is just this big crater. And Colonel Vorubo, gets out of his office and climbs down into the well, and then discovers the secrets behind the well and how the messages ends up in the safe. And he finds this tunnel or shaft. I say, aha, there it is. Now really I understand how the messages. He follows it and climbs up and finds this hatch to the safe. He opens it and he realizes the one of the secrets of the unknown commander has been exposed now, finally. And then, of course, there is a story where later on, where Woruba sits in his office and a patrolman comes running saying, the signal is flashing, the lamp is flashing again.
Yes.
Woruba says that's impossible. It couldn't really be. But he goes, he went up to the office of the commander where this safe is. And this is, I mean, it's only a safe there. There's nothing else than the safe in this room. He opens the safe, and of course he finds a new message or an envelope from the unknown commander. So how the devil does this? It turns out that this tunnel from the well, which ends up in the shaft that goes up to the safe.
Yeah.
This tunnel goes on and has a natural opening on I think on a mountain ridge or so above the compounds of the Younger Patrol. So, and that's where the Phantom now should go to leave the messages in the safe. And it's still, of course, a mystery to Colonel Woruba, because the tunnel is the entrance, the old entrance of the tunnel is blocked by the patrol, so nobody else should really be able to get into the safe. But they don't know that this tunnel travels on. So it was really quite fun to do this story.
Yeah, good.
So was were you afraid to blow up the tunnel? Was it something that you were a little bit wary about with the backlash of Phantom fans, or was it just a great opportunity to be able to try something different?
No, not particularly. No, because we had a solution already thought out and mapped out really. So it wouldn't really change the universe of the Phantom after all. It was just that the safe was the central part here, and that you had another entrance than the old well. Well, yeah, that's.
So was this a lot of these changes and movement came through in the 1990s? We've heard about the formation of something called the Brains Trust, which was apparently yourself and a few key people who sort of got together and tried to map out the future of the Phantom story for a few years or going forward.
Yes, at least for 1 year at a time, and this Brain Trust consisted of a couple of script writers and artists here in Sweden. It was first of all scriptwriter Claes Reimert, who joined Team Fantomen in 1984. Also scriptwriter and partly and at times also artist Lennart Moberg from Sweden, and of course artist Hans Lindahl, who I hired in 1983. Lindahl came to a book called a comic book called Svenska serier, Swedish comics, where he did a short story, not the Phantom at all, but Swedish Comics was a comic book published in 79 and to 1892, I think it was. I was the editor also of that comic book, and it was open to artists and script writers. It was a sort of test ground to find talent, really, to find script writers and artists for the production of the Semic publishing line. Mm-hmm. And the best find, of course, was Hans Lindahl.
Yeah, amazing artist.
Was very, very good artist, very good artist. But also, I must say that Claes Reimert was to some extent hired because of his connection to Swedish comics. He sent in a series which he had both written and drawn. I rejected it, but he was very. He was writing very well, and a few hours, a few years later, he came up with his first script for the Phantom. He worked together at first with a female scriptwriter called Di Darrell, or Diane Alfred, who wrote, among other stories, The Source of Life, I think it's called in English. Perhaps it was, and drawn by Hans Lindahl. I think it was really his first story or second story that he drew. But this partnership with Di Darrell didn't work out too well, so Claes carried on alone, and he has done so ever since, and he is still the head writer, a main writer of the Phantom stories, I think. So he has written well over 200 Phantom stories to date.
Yes.
But he and Hans and Lennart Moberg and a few other people were part of this brain trust. And we mapped out, tried to map out the stories of the Phantom for a whole year. And in particular, those stories which were supposed to carry the main plot line further on. We had a sort of a main plot line which we got back to in every third or every fourth issue. And the stories in between could be historical adventures or other standalone stories.
Yes.
But the main plot line was carried on over the whole year, and it was rather difficult to make this all to have this all this working. it's because you had to rely on the artists that they had to deliver on deadline, and of course all things could happen every time, and I had to have some backup or for incidents and things that you couldn't really take into account. So it was really a nervous job from time to time.
Were you happy
to keep this going?
Were you happy with the outcome of the Labunga series?
I thought it was very good,
yeah.
And I thought that it sort of lifted the concept that it became more realistic, but unfortunately the readers didn't really appreciate it that much. We got a lot of comments on the Labanga stories, and one comment which we got more than once was that politics or modern politics and everyday politics, we don't need that. We don't want that in the Phantom. We have that on television every day. So please. So after about a year or so, maybe a year and a half, we had to step back.
Yeah.
And to more traditional Phantom stories. We could still have plot lines which sort of were carried on in every third or fourth issue, but not political issues like where the Bengali government and the rain was involved, but rather plots involving like seeing pirates and the sandal thing, for instance, which we and also of course what's the name? I have forgotten the name of her father.
Dogai.
Dogai, yes. I should remember it because it was I who sort of invented him. So, but I've forgotten the name. Dogai Singh, yes. A sort of, I think that we said in one of the first stories where he appears that he was a nephew of Kabai Singh in the very first Phantom story of the Seeing Pirates in 1936. He was some kind of nephew or so he took over. and we have followed him very closely also over the years. So he has become a personality, as well as Sandal Singh, which also I take some responsibility for having invented and also brought to on the paper.
And she's certainly a controversial figure for certainly some Phantom readers, particularly, and I think this would have been...
I'm quite sure.
but particularly some of the stories that Claes has written, I would think since your retirement, but the prospect of her at the moment being pregnant with what may or may not be the Phantom's child is certainly... I must confess I'm not super comfortable with that myself, and I know that there's lots of other readers that aren't either. So,
Claes and I discussed that quite a lot. I think that when this actually is supposed to happen, that story, I was still the editor at that time of the so I will have to take responsibility for for that. But ever after, when is it a son was born, I don't know if it was a son or a daughter or
it was a son
thing.
Yeah, it was a son.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, I was out of the business then.
Right.
so
there's some plausible deniability from here on.
Conception, yes. The conception, yes.
So can you
it.
confirm or deny if it is the Phantom son?
No, I can't. I can't really.
Oh, we just about had the scoop of the century then.
So no, not even when I'm retired. No, I cannot confirm or deny. It has to be a part of the Phantom myth, really.
Fair enough.
Oh yes, I have met Siberry several times, and Siberry came to Sweden here in 2001, and he was my guest here in Stockholm, and I guided him and his wife Semi around Stockholm a couple of days, and then we went to Gothenburg and the Gothenburg Book Fair in September 2001.
So, what do the Swedish fans think about Cy? I mean, you said that you came on board really as a fan yourself when he became the artist. Is he popular in Sweden and to this day?
I think so. Yes. Siberry was really the mark for all the other artists I hired. Not that they should copy him or his style, but look to him how he was handling the character and how he was visualizing things. Every artist had his own distinct style, of course, but there was always in the background that Siberry was what they should look to when they were when they were drawing the Phantom, angles, I mean, and how to the composition and so on and so on.
Yeah,
so,
totally agree.
But each one of them have their very own style. Of the Phantom. Yeah.
So can we put you on the spot then? And like you've talked about so many different artists and so many different strengths that they have. Can we put you on the spot and ask you, who do you think was the best artist that you worked with?
It's like asking you to choose your favourite child.
Well, that's I couldn't really do that because there's so many different things and to take into account regarding keeping deadlines. That sort of
That's
thing.
a great editor's answer. Sticking to the script. In some cases, artists made additions to the script, which were very good, improved the script, in fact, or improving the story. So it, and this is all by different artists. So it is very difficult to answer
Well,
I
who was
I
probably the
I would really do that. I'm very happy with all the 15 artists that I have, or 18 artists that I have been working with over these years since 72 and up till 2012. We should also not forget a Swedish artist which has drawn only 2 stories, and that was before my time. It was in the 60s already, but it is the grand old man of comics here in Sweden. His name is Rolf Goos.
Oh,
And
of course.
Rolf Goos has been painting, or did paint, Phantom covers from 1957 up to 2012.
yes,
And he has done around 1,000 covers for the Phantom, and a number of covers for other type of other comic books, like Seriemagasinet, for instance, in the 50s. And Rolf is an old man now, will be 85 in this fall, and I regularly visit him still a couple of times every month, because he lives about 30 kilometers from me, north of Stockholm.
Wow.
So we meet regularly, and he really deserves to be mentioned also in this pod in Australia, I think. So he has been a reliable source of delivering covers for many years.
Well, he's a favourite of yours, isn't he, Jerm?
Yeah, I'm actually lucky enough to have one of his covers, one of his original covers.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Trouble in Banguette or something, where he's on the rooftop, and there's the starlight in the background, and his work is amazing. I know quite a few Australian art collectors, and even other around the world and all that. And yeah, I think he's like on one of the bucket list of art to get for a lot of them.
Very highly sought after.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Then I know that I saw on the net just the other day that one of his cover paintings here on a Swedish page net page were auctioned for a very good price indeed, and I'm quite happy for him. And I have known him ever since I started at CEMIC in 1970. So it's been a very long relationship, and he deserves all the credit he can get also. So, but like I said, all the artists and all the scriptwriters, not to forget them. It's been a delight to work with them, definitely. Many great meetings, so many great ideas has come out of this relationship, and I'm very thankful for it, really. My hobby and my dream turned into my to my profession. So, and I cannot be anything else but very happy about that.
Mm.
I meant to ask before, when I was talking about the 20 generations or the 19 generations that you got to work with because Lee Falk had left it open. Did you find yourself at some point, Ulf, having to do up a family tree of the Phantom and work out which generation had been in which years and who had married who and that sort of thing? Did you have a map of what that looked like?
Oh, you mean all the generations back to number one?
Yeah.
Yes,
because Lee Falk was, pretty famously a little bit loose about who was who and which Phantom worked with who and whatever. So did you ever actually map that out and put a family tree of some sort together?
Yes, I did. Actually, that was one of my very early efforts to try to to put in each generation where it belonged. So I did a family tree of the Phantom, a list from 1536 to up till 1976 or whatever it was at that time, and try to squeeze in 20 generations.
Yeah, that
was not easy. I could tell you that because, for instance, in the 17th and 18th centuries, the different phantoms of those days, they died like flies. They had to. They had to. They couldn't be more than. They were not allowed to be more than 36 or 37 years old. So, but I managed to make it work. But it meant that the grandson of, say, the fifth Phantom had to be born before grandfather could be killed or dead. And this happened repeatedly all the time. Otherwise, this schedule or this tree would have collapsed. And I did this in 1970. I don't remember if it was 76 or 77. Anyway, when it must have been in 75. When Lee Falk came to Stockholm in 1976, it was to promote the marriage of Phantom and Diana. He was traveling around the world, I guess. And he also came to Stockholm and to Semik, and that was the first time I met Lee Falk. A very nice man to speak with, I must say. And he also brought along Elizabeth Moxley at that time, who then later became Mrs. Lee Falk. Roughly at the same time when the Phantom was married, I think.
Yes.
Anyway, when he came to Semik to visit me and also the publisher and the managing director and so on, we gave him a collection of these Phantom collectibles and gadgets. But I also gave him a copy of this family tree, or a list of Phantoms with birth date and death, date of death. So he looked at it and he just said something. Never mentioned it anymore, and I don't think that he ever used it because the daily strip, the daily stories, and the Sunday pages, they were still a bit bit mixed up
Yeah.
many years after that, so he never used my schedule. But we in Scandinavia and for the Swedish production, we stuck to that schedule very, very close.
Yeah.
So, but I felt it was necessary to do, because if we were going to do more historical adventures, we had to have a sort of guideline or ruler or whatever you call it, so we wouldn't just stumble over ourselves in the stories.
So what do you think?
Totally agree.
What do you think then about the idea of the current Phantom 21 dying and moving to Phantom 22? Should that be Kit and Heloise or Heloise? Should they share the role? Should that even happen? What are your thoughts about moving to the next generation?
This question, Craig, came up at least 25 years ago, when only a few years after the twins were born.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
So in the late 80s, I think that this question came up, but I would definitely say no. The Phantom 21, the 21st Phantom, should not be allowed to die. You can do stories with Kit and Heloise acting as phantoms at the time.
As the Phantom, which we've seen as well.
The Phantom could be away for a reason, or maybe he will be very seriously injured, so he has to recuperate for a couple of months, and they could move in and do the Phantom jobs. But the Phantom, the 21st Phantom, should not die, because that would really take the main object. I say object of the Phantom. Take the most central thing out of the universe of the Phantom, and you shouldn't really do that, because there is a risk you would kill the whole thing, and you have to rebuild the characters that come in instead, if that will be Kit or Heloise or both of them, because they are really nothing as phantoms so far. They have been part of stories and even played main parts in stories, but still it's something very different.
Yeah.
So if the old man has some say, I would say no. Don't kill Phantom 21.
I hear what you're saying.
You did produce a story in 2003 called The First Assignment, which was done by Ben Rabin Filming, which had Kit and Heloise being the 22nd Phantom. And then there was also the Phantom 2050, I believe. And then just recently there's...
sort of a future Phantom. But the future, that Phantom of the future, he moves in acts and in different different surrounding, and completely different from the present day Phantom.
Yeah.
So it's more like tale of it's like a historical adventure.
So that was featuring the
moving-
23rd Phantom.
Yes, that's right. Because each Phantom from 1 up to 20 has their own universe.
Yeah.
But the universe of the 21st Phantom is sort of above all the others, and there is certainly a start to that universe, but there is no ending to it. All the other ancestors, they have both a start and an ending to their universe. The 21st Phantom hasn't got that. So that's the great difference, I think.
Yeah.
And your thoughts on
I'm not the editor anymore, so.
So what are your thoughts on female Phantoms then? Because obviously Heloise is in the chamber, I suppose, so to speak, and we've had Julie as the 18th Phantom. Do you like the female Phantom stories and the possibilities of a female, hero in that vein?
Yes, why not? I mean, that could, in itself, trigger off many very good stories, which would not be possible to do with a male Phantom. So I think there are a lot of possibilities with a female Phantom in many different aspects. Not the least Me Too, which is
yes.
up to date now.
in the current environment. Yes.
Yes, that's right. So
you also had a 31st Phantom as well.
Yes, we did, and that was also a sort of futuristic story which we did. That was I don't remember. Was it that in a special issue? I think.
Yeah, in a
Just to celebrate
Fantomen Krönika.
Yes, that's right. Fantomen Chronicle. When we had those introduction pages also. That's right.
Ulf, how do you feel about the Tony DePaul is the current newspaper artist writer. We spoke to him recently for a podcast, and he's done nearly 20 years of newspaper strip, and he started with Team Fantomen, and you brought him in. There must be a sense of pride of some sort that someone who started writing for your team has gone on to take over from Lee Falk.
Yes, of course. I am proud because both Paul Ryan and Tony DePaul were. I recommended both of them to King Features and to Jay Kennedy at that time. When Lee Falk had passed away. Sometime later, they needed both new artist and a scriptwriter also, in particular scriptwriter. And I said to Jay then that it really I don't really want to do this, but the daily strip and the Sunday page is very important. So if you will hire Paul Ryan and Tony DePaul, it's just fine with me. I think they are both very good professional comic creators and script writer and artists. So I know this means that they probably can't do anything for the book anymore. In particular, Paul Ryan, who was very he took both the daily strip and the Sunday page, so that was a full-time job. Tony DePaul could do still do a few stories for me, but not Paul Ryan, I think. But I'm very proud that King Features and Jay Kennedy, who also died a couple of years ago, thought that they were good, and they were hired by King Features.
So would you say that's one of your biggest satisfactions, is having that influence and seeing Tony DePaul and Paul Ryan taking over the Daily Sundays, or would there be other?
It's one of them.
Yeah,
it's one of them. I'm very. I mean, I was editor of a number of other comic books and magazines as well. But of course, the Phantom is particular to me, and I'm very proud of having had and also being lucky to be in the right place, the right time.
Yeah,
because it was in the 70s when comic book sales went up. And the Phantom sold fantastically well. And I think in 1979 or 1980, we had an average sale on each Phantom issue of 175,000.
Wow.
Which is, well, fantastic.
That's amazing. Really. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes. It was fantastic, and I'm very proud of being part of that, together with all the artists and script writers. And I have been overseeing as an editor and about all the Phantom story, or all the stories that we produced from 1973 up till 2012. That is 830 stories, I think, or something like that. And so I have, and I have been in charge of the comic book first as an editor, and then I was editor-in-chief and finally publisher, and then went back to as part-time editor in 2005 or 6. So I've been editing over 1,000 issues of the Phantom.
Wow.
So, and that's one I'm really proud of that. Indeed.
Yeah, as you should be.
And also, of course, your
legacy has been felt all the way to Australia and other parts of the world.
It's been. We published also, of course, in India, sold Phantom stories to India, and been in Italy, in France. I've been published in England, and
Hungary.
Also,
Russia.
I think Russia,
Estonia,
the Eastern Europe, and Greece, I think, and Italy.
Turkey,
Italy,
Turkey, Brazil.
Turkey, Brazil also.
Might be quicker to list the countries you haven't been published in.
Well, oh, well, there are a few left, I guess. Yeah.
So, Ulf, is there like there's so much to be proud of, and you should be really satisfied with the contribution you've made. Of course, we could only dream. Do you have any regrets about your time there? Is there a story that didn't quite happen? Is there something that you look back and go, oh, if only? Is there anything there?
No, not really. Not that I could think of now. I mean, I do have a lot of stories to to take into account and consider, but I can't really say that I am really disappointed with something which shouldn't have been done. Probably somebody else will just come around soon and say, well, how about that particular thing and that particular issue? Don't you remember?
That's good though, because
I don't know.
There's plenty of people who are happy to point out what we've done wrong, but if you can look back at your own career and go, you know what, I've done the best that I could and all the rest of it, you know, I'm the first member of the Chronicle Chamber team to say that I love the Lee Falk stories, and I'm sometimes skeptical about the Scandinavian stuff, but no one can put into any doubt the influence that you've had and the positive influence you've had, the wonderful stories that have come out of your mind and the collaborations that you've had with others, and you know, thoroughly appreciate and thank you very much for the work that you've done.
Yes.
Oh,
totally agree.
Thank you very much.